Welcome back. The Dubai Shopping Festival kicks off this week, a highly anticipated event by the region's retailers. So what sort of impact will the DSF have on Dubai's retail sector this year? And how has consumer confidence progressed from last year? Well, we're joined now by Richard Adams, a retail analyst at Verdict, to discuss this. Welcome to the show, Richard. Now tell us, how has the impact been, or will be, for the festival, for the Dubai retail sector? What do you think?
Well, look, I think that the DSF will have to be beneficial for the Dubai retail sector. We expect sales from the festival to amount to roughly 11 billion dirhams. So definitely the impact will be positive.
Good. That's very good to hear. Tell us about the improved consumer confidence. How will that be playing into these figures? Are people still holding on tight to their wallets, do you think?
Look, certainly we've seen that consumer confidence over the last 4 quarters has been reasonably sort of stable. Nielsen figures suggest that confidence has polled around about 101 points, 102 points over the last 4 quarters. But you are right. Consumers here are actually quite tight with their money still. And I think it's important to take a step back and to look at this more closely. And if you look at sort of savings ratios between 2006 and 2008. Consumer savings ratios were falling dramatically whilst incomes were rising. Now, this changed dramatically in 2009. So you had basically savings ratios rose from about 15% to 22%.
Quite a bit.
Whereas incomes sort of stagnated. So consumers have been much more keen to save a little bit more than they were previously. And certainly, but on the flip side, one certainly shouldn't say that this will adversely affect the festival. Perhaps quite the obverse. I think we'll see that many consumers have been, like last year, putting off, delaying expenditures. And because there are so many great bargains in the DSF, this is the time they'll spend.
We heard recently that the Chinese government is more liberal towards Chinese travelling abroad, especially here to Dubai. What do you think the increased tourism figures, especially from China, how will that play into the sales figures?
Well, certainly, again, it will have a very positive impact. I think in the September of 2009, I believe, the Chinese government gave the UAE approved destination status, and this had a big impact on the numbers of Chinese who were visiting. Year on year, I think, between 2010 and 2009, H1 on H1, we saw about a 57% rise in the numbers of Chinese staying in Dubai hotels. So certainly will have a positive impact, but I think it'll have a particularly positive impact because Chinese New Year this year coincides with the shopping festival. And the Chinese, during Chinese New Year, love to give hongbao, so little presents of money to their relatives. They love to give gifts. So I think the Chinese story is a big one for UAE retailers.
So perfect timing, isn't it?
Perfect timing.
Tell us about the increased lending to consumers that we heard about in the last couple of weeks. How will that play into the figures?
Look, obviously liquidity and easier credit has to be an advantage for retailers. But I wouldn't get too carried away with it. If you just turn to the numbers, about 35% of UAE consumers are still saving in order to pay down debt. That compares to about 15% who are saying, look, we can use credit to maintain lifestyle. So certainly in the short term, I don't think we should get too carried away with these kind of factors.
What do you think the footfall will look like this year at the festival? Will I be crushed if I go to the mall?
Look, we're pretty upbeat on footfall estimates. We talk very regularly with a lot of the mall operators here. And certainly the mall operators are saying to us, look, Q4 figures for 2010 were really very strong. And certainly they expect strong footfall figures to continue through into Q1 2011. And certainly if I have to stick my neck out, I would expect around about 3.7 million visitors to come for the festival.
What a number. Thanks for coming on our show today,
It's a pleasure.
Richard.
A real pleasure.
Great. Now it's time to take a look at the GCC markets, which ended mostly higher today. Coming up now, let's take a look at currencies against the dirham, followed by the price of oil and precious metals. Well, that's it from the business desk. You can contact us, though, at news@city7tv.com. Up next, Laura Buckwell is back with the news.